And so I got the nose cone here for the Miss America Mustang, and that one's a little bit smaller on the inside here. On the two edges are a little bit closer together than on the nose cones that go with the Focke-Wulf and the Zero, and also the nose cone that goes with the Messerschmitts here. And so since these have a bigger area on it, you can fit this black propeller into either one of those, no problem. But if you want to install the black propeller onto a Mustang nose cone or a Spitfire nose cone, you'll have to do a little bit of modifications and just kind of work that propeller into there, because this larger central hub is a little bit tight. The GWS prop there, the 5030, has that smaller central hub, and so that'll fit into any of the nose cones. But this black one you'll have to work in a little bit into the Mustang and the Spitfire, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. And so also when installing the prop saver adapter onto these Turnigy style motors, you're going to want to hold it by the motor and not by the frame, because you need to torque these bolts down with the Allen wrench that comes with it. And if you were to hold it by the frame and torque down hard enough on those bolts, you could possibly damage the frame. And so I recommend holding it by the motor when torquing down these bolts and installing the props and everything, just to ensure that you're not going to damage the frame at all. And before I install a prop onto here, I'd like to show how you can remove this nose cone and use this propeller on the custom Powercores as well. And so this propeller is mounted onto this nose cone with a rubber gasket and a 3mm axle. And so to remove the nose cone, all you need to do is get a finger on each side of the prop here and just push down on the styrofoam on the nose cone and just slowly work the propeller out of that rubber gasket. Once you have it out of that rubber gasket there, then you can take the propeller, which has this 3mm plastic axle running through it, onto this snap-on prop saver. And this axle is just glued onto the propeller, and so you can remove it by just pushing it through. And you just have to push hard enough to break the glue. And then once the glue breaks free, you can just grab this central hub and just slide the axle out of the propeller. And then once the axle is out of the propeller, you're just left with a 3mm hole in there that you could then install onto this prop saver adapter. But you'll need to, this is a 4mm hub on here, so you'll need to drill out this 3mm to a 4mm. And I would recommend to just drill out the bottom half of the prop to 4mm to fit onto this hub, and leave the top at 3mm still. And then what you can do is take this axle and cut it with an X-Acto knife, cut off that bottom snap-on adapter, and then take the 3mm axle, slide it into the prop and glue it into place. And then you'll be able to slide this nose cone back onto this propeller, and then set the propeller down onto the prop saver adapter and install it onto a custom Powercore. And so to install these other propellers onto this nose cone here, we'll need to install these nose cone adapter pins. The blue pin is for the black prop, and that goes from 3mm down to 5mm, and that'll just plug right into the center there. And then the same with this one, goes from 3mm to 4mm, which fits into the GWS prop. I'm going to install the black prop on here just to show how you need to squeeze it in to fit it on there. So first I'm going to remove this pin again, and then you'll want to just take this nose cone, set the propeller in there. It won't sit flush up to the front edge there, so what you want to do is just kind of press on it and just work it into place slowly, and just press it in there to deform the styrofoam until you can get this front edge of the blade up to the edge of the nose cone. And so just kind of work it in there to deform the styrofoam to make a little spot for the prop to sit in. And I recommend just pushing this in and deforming the plastic instead of or the styrofoam instead of trying to cut the styrofoam out, because if you don't cut out equal amounts on each side, it's going to throw off the balance of this nose cone, and you need to have them balanced out very well when using this prop saver adapter, because it's just this rubber O-ring that's holding it on, and so there is play to the propeller, and if you don't have it balanced out well, it's going to wobble. So you need to have it balanced out very well. And then, as I was saying before, with these Messerschmitts, with the Messerschmitts, the Focke-Wulf, or the Zero nose cones, this black propeller will just drop right in. There's plenty of room for it on the Focke-Wulf and the Messerschmitts, so not an issue with those. But so if you want to install this onto there, you're going to need to put the nose cone pin in there. It fits in fairly well, just friction fit and straight, but I would recommend to glue it into place. And the best way to ensure that it is on straight, even though it tends to install pretty straight to begin with, would be to put on this nose cone adapter, tighten it down, and then loop this O-ring around the bottom there, set the prop onto the adapter, pull the O-ring over and latch that onto the top bolt, and then once you have that propeller installed, what I'd recommend is to just plug in the Powercore, turn it on to a low RPM, and then just visually verify that this nose cone adapter pin is in there straight. I suppose you could probably just flick it with your finger too and just get a visual on it that it looks nice and straight. If it's off a little bit, just try and nudge it one way and spin it again, and once you visually verified that it's in there very straight, I would glue it into place with the super thin CA glue just to ensure that it won't come loose over time, because if there is a slight wobble to the nose cone or something, it could work its way loose over time. So just glue it into place to ensure that you won't have any issues with it. And then once you have it glued into place, give it a few minutes to cure, because CA glue will melt styrofoam, so you don't want to install the nose cone right away. Just give it a minute to cure, and then once it's cured, you can install the nose cone onto there. It'll just slide right on. And then once you have the nose cone on, I would suggest turning on the Powercore again to a low RPM to verify that there's no wobbling going on. Even if the nose cone adapter pin is in straight, sometimes the nose cone is a little bit off one way, so I would install it both ways. Put it on this way and then check it out, see how straight it is, and then rotate it 180 degrees, reinstall it on there and verify how straight it is that way, and then go with whichever one is straighter, because you do want to have it balanced out as well as possible, because like I was saying, once you have this on there, if it's not balanced out really well, since you're using this prop saver adapter with the rubber gasket, it can start to wobble like that. And if it's really off balance and it starts to wobble hard, it's going to wobble harder at higher RPMs. And if that starts to wobble really bad because you were in a crash and the nose cone is dented in or something like that, if it wobbles hard enough, it could go back far enough to hit the fuselage, and if that happens, it's either going to kick the prop off the prop saver, and you're probably going to lose your O-ring. And if it doesn't kick the prop off, then the propeller is going to start grinding down the front of your plane, so that's definitely not going to be good. So definitely make sure it's balanced out well before you use it, and if it doesn't seem good and it's making a lot of noise and wobbling around, I would suggest just going with the aluminum bullet nose cone, because that will secure very well to the shaft, because there is no prop saver, it's just that bolt that you screw down, so it'll be very secure on there, very rigid connection, which will actually give you better performance out of these Powercores as well, because this one, when you go into corners, since the propeller can give, it will a little bit, and so you're losing out on a little bit of performance from that movement.